do the same with evolution. And I could be wrong, so I don't want to cast aspersion here, but what is it that you think evolution is? And are we talking about the same thing when we use this term? Because otherwise, we might be talking past each other, and there's really no way to have a productive discussion, right?
Well, correct. That's why early in my debates or in discussions, I defined the word evolution into its 6 different meanings, 6 different levels or stages. All I can do is show you what the textbooks teach, and I collect public school textbooks. I have hundreds of them. I have a giant library full of it. This is what they I'm quoting from Prentice Hall, one of the major publishers in America, General Science book back in 1992. It's in my collection. This is for junior high. It says, 18 or 20 billion years ago, all the matter in the universe was concentrated into one very dense, very hot region that may have been much smaller than a period on this page. For some unknown reason, this region exploded. This is called the Big Bang.
Yeah, neither one of us, I hate to cut you off, but just so that we don't talk past each other like we were talking, neither one of us would agree that that is evolution. Or if you would say that's evolution, I would.
No, that's the first. That's the first essential stage. You have to have something to evolve.
I mean, you're talking about the Big Bang.
Where did matter come from? I think we would all agree that all the plants and animals are made out of matter.
But even if I were to answer the question, where did matter come from, that would in no way explain evolution. We could both agree to that, right?
Oh, I do not agree to that. I think that's the first essential step. Oh, you have to have matter come from nothing. You have to have the origin of matter, time, space, and matter. Then you have to have this matter come alive, the origin of life from non-living material.
Once again, I mean that would be another thing. That would be abiogenesis, not evolution.
Right. But you have to have that before you've got a coherent theory.
If I can't explain the origin of every facet of a certain thing, then we're not out of the topic of that thing. We're still talking about that. That's not how science works. And that's to get to the brass tacks of it. You're talking about Big Bang and you're talking about abiogenesis. None of this stuff is evolution.
It is. You're missing the point. They have to have some matter. Where did matter come from? How did it come alive? If it came alive, who did it marry? There's 6 different levels or stages, and the atheists hate it when I do this because it's so true. Well, let me just read you straight from the textbook again. Okay, here is this is the thing. If you don't believe this is true, well, then help me get this stuff out of the textbooks, because this is what they're teaching the kids, whether this is part of the theory or not. It says 3.4 billion years old. They show a picture of a fossil starfish. The remains of the early ancestors of modern human beings. Here we are telling the kids in the Whole Earth Science book, 1989, page 294, that a starfish is their ancestor. That is what they're showing the kids very clearly. Here's Discover Magazine, November 2004. Title on the front of the cover, top of the cover, Was Your Ancestor a Sea Sponge? And if you turn to page 64...
Your ancestor. That does sound silly. Before we do that, if you don't mind, I was asking you the definition of evolution and if we're talking about the same thing, and you talked about here's 6 things, and we didn't even agree on the first 2, and you're talking about sea sponges, which is funny. I'll grant you that. It's funny. But I want to talk on the same page, and evolution has a definition, right? I mean, wouldn't you say that what you're talking about from like science textbooks and that sort of thing, that's not going to help us get to talk about the same thing? Because whenever I use the word evolution, I'm not talking about some textbook that you're referencing from, a decade ago or something. You know that. And whenever I think you're saying evolution, I don't know that you're saying the same thing that I'm saying. If you're saying evolution is the Big Bang and abiogenesis, and I don't know what textbook you got that from, but some kind of textbook or something, we're at a loss, and our conversation is going to be limited because whenever you use a certain term and I use a certain term, they mean different things to us. And I don't think it's fair to the listener for us to start, volleying the word evolution back and forth, and we never really settled on exactly what that is. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly correct. That's why I do this early on in my seminar, is I point out there are 6 levels or stages. They always want to talk about what everybody would consider microevolution. Dogs, wolves, and coyotes coming from a common ancestor. I agree with that. There are 1,100 now recognized species of bats in the world. They might have had a common ancestor. It was a bat. There are 8 different varieties of bears, the grizzly bear, black bear, panda bear, whatever. Okay. They might have had a common ancestor. It was a bear. So we see 8 kinds of bears and 1,100 kinds of bats. That is observable science. The evolutionist believes, capital B, believes that bats and bears are related. That is religion. That is not science. And that's what the textbooks teach. So yes, the word evolution has to be carefully dissected. What exactly do you mean by that word, evolution?
Whenever I'm using the term evolution, I'm talking about the divergence of life on the planet, different kinds of living organisms, how they developed and diversified from early forms, that sort of thing. Evolution through natural selection and mutation explains that divergence. It doesn't explain where life originated or how, the original stars were formed in nurseries and that sort of thing, but it does explain exactly how there could be such different animals and different kinds of animals on the earth. Would that be okay of a definition for us to work from?
Well, no, I disagree completely. Evolution, if you want to talk about the divergence of life on Earth and natural selection is a selection process. It doesn't create anything. Don't you think it'd be beneficial to the zebras who keep trying to run away from the lions? Why haven't any of them developed wings where they can fly away from the lions? For years and years.
Hold on. Wait. Do you believe that evolution is the idea that zebras grow wings?
I believe evolution, if you talk about microevolution, which I think is a lousy term.
But do you believe that macroevolution would say that zebras would grow wings or that people come from rocks? Is that what you think that if I say I believe in evolution, or a better way of characterizing it might be I accept evolution?
I would disagree with that.
Would you say that I think that I came from a rock?
You cannot use the word accept. You have to believe that these things happen. Nobody ever sees a dog produce a non-dog or a bear produce a non-bear. Every farmer in the world, for all of human history, has counted on evolution not happening.
Right, but you haven't seen a wolf produce a chihuahua, but we accept that through all the series of different dog adaptations, whether it be natural or not, we've seen that chihuahuas can be developed from a wolf, but a wolf doesn't give birth to a chihuahua. I mean, in the same sense of a Spanish-speaking mother never gave birth to an English-speaking baby. You know what I mean? That's not how progression occurs. That's not how evolution happens.
I think we could agree that the chihuahua and the wolf are related. I think we have observed incredible variations in the dog gene code. There now are 339 recognized breeds of dogs in America at the American Kennel Association. Okay. From the Chihuahua to the Great Dane. If you want to expand that to the wolf, the coyote, maybe the fox even, I don't know. Maybe the jackal. I don't know how far this goes. But I think that the Bible says they bring forth after their kind.
Kind is not a scientific term.
Neither is species. A horse and a zebra
species is definitely a scientific term used in biology.
A horse and a zebra are different species. They can still interbreed. You tell me exactly what the word species means, please.
If something can still interbreed, it is not a different species.
Why are horse and zebra listed as different species that they can interbreed and produce a zorse?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just telling you the simple definition of species. If two things can't screw, then they're different species. It's that basic. It's a very simple definition. And I mean, it's even an easier definition than kind, which you would expect kind to be basic and simple, being that it's from the Bronze Age perhaps, but it's not. Like, what kind is a raccoon? What kind is that? Like, it doesn't really make sense for stuff. I mean, the Bible even contradicted itself in terms of whether a bat was a kind of bird when it's not. That's why we don't use the word kind in science, because it's just not sufficient to explain the divergence of life.
Okay. Are dark brown people and light brown people able to crossbreed and produce offspring that are viable?
Yes.
What they commonly call a black person and a white person. They can mate and produce babies, right?
Yes.
Can any of the humans that we recognize as humans, black, white, Chinese, whatever, can they crossbreed with apes, chimpanzees, orangutans, or monkeys and produce offspring?
No.
So are they a different kind?
Once again, the term kind, like if you're asking me to define kind, my best efforts would just be quoting Bible scriptures, and that's really not going to help us in dealing in science. And I think you would accept that. Like we can't.
I don't accept it. Oh. The Bible says if they can bring forth, they are the same kind. A horse and a zebra can bring forth, and a 5-year-old kid knows a horse and a zebra are the same kind of animal, and the horse and a bat cannot bring forth. Neither can a horse and a dog or a horse and a pine tree. So there are obviously different kinds of life on the planet, and every farmer for all of human history has counted on things breeding after their kind. You might get bigger corn or smaller corn or sweet corn or sour corn or popcorn, but it's corn. It doesn't turn into a pine tree or an acorn or a walnut or a cow.
But Kent, we're not talking about basic farmer stuff. I mean, if you were going to go get a vaccination against a flu vaccine, which has evolved to resist its last vaccination from less than a year ago, you're not going to ask a farmer what to put in that hypodermic needle. You're not going to ask somebody that wrote the Bible on animal skins what to put in that needle. You're going to want to ask somebody that knows about this stuff.
Let's assume that the flu vaccine, which I don't believe vaccine should be used at all, that's another topic.
I should have asked that one from the beginning. You're anti-vax?
Well, no, I'm pro-life. I'm pro-health. I don't think your doctor even knows what's in those needles he's putting into your arm. Ask him.
I missed the buck on that one. Okay, but we're gonna go down a pretty wild spiral, and our time's limited. So go ahead, and then I'll follow up with some other questions.
Okay, microevolution I think is a lousy term, but basically it means animals produce a wide variety of offspring. You may get a dog with long hair or short hair, long legs or short legs, straight tail or curly tail, but it's always a dog. And nature would select certain ones to survive based upon what happens. If you turn all the dogs in the world loose into Alaska, the thin-furred dogs would not survive. Only the thick-furred dogs would survive. Yeah. And after a couple of generations, you're going to have nothing left up there but the wolf or the, husky.
Yeah.
Okay, nature did not create the long hair on the dog. It selected the long hair to survive. But if you turned all those same dogs loose into the desert of Australia, now the thick fur is detrimental. And they're going to overheat and die, and so they don't get to produce the next generation. So pretty soon, after 4 or 5 generations, you have a whole population of dingoes with thin fur, long legs to get away from desert heat. Nature did not create that. It selected it. Natural selection is wonderful. It works fine.
You are nailing this 100%, Kent. I'm with you. Yes.
But it's still a dog, and it's only selecting something that was in the gene code.
But why would you assume that something could be in the gene code in relation to thickness of fur, but not in relation to other things that might start developing over time that could, reshape the animal in its entirety? Why is that like such a big stretch? If you can go this far with me, why can't you keep going?
Well, you just left science and went to religion. What we observe is exactly that. The farmer might get bigger cows. They've developed cows to give more milk or cows to give more beef. I agree. They have selected slices of the already existing gene code to get what they want to be the most profitable for their region. But they're still cow, and the further you get away from the norm, the more problems you have. Now you got to babysit the dumb cow. You turn him loose into the woods and he's going to die. Oh, it's same with the dogs. How long would the Chihuahuas last in the woods?
Not long. So, okay, and I would be satisfied in that because I'm not a big Chihuahua fan.